Hi, in this week's Feldenkrais lesson I'd like to show you how you can use a ball to help improve your core mobility. One of the things that I find as a Feldenkrais practitioner when I work with people here in the studio is that particularly if they're a bit older or they've suffered an injury, the whole of this area, the pelvis and the spine and the sacrum, their tailbone, it's as if that area really doesn't exist, or it doesn't exist as a moving part of themselves that can contribute to their movement. My good friend, teacher and colleague, Michelle Turner of Movement Lesson, often talks about the area of the pelvis being a gyroscope. In other words, that if I begin to tilt my weight to one side and then to the other, I'm expressing that balance through my pelvis and my sacrum to maintain my ability to look around myself and interact with the world. What often happens with people as they get older, or if they've had a particular issue, is that people begin to shift their weight and fall. In other words, the pelvis isn't contributing in the way that it could do to their ability to move. Using one of these balls, I found, is a great way to bring awareness back into this area, and I hope that if you have one of these balls or a similar ball, you'll get a lot out of this lesson. The ball that I'm using is actually called a Franklin ball. They come in pairs. I'll put some information in the description box below about where I got the ball and about another kind of ball that you can use. The great thing about this ball is that it's tough, it's really strong, it can bear my body weight, and it has a bit of give. It's also possible to buy a pump to inflate it if it gets a little bit deflated, but I've been using these for over a year and I've not had to inflate mine once since I've got it. The other thing I should mention about the ball is about the size. It's about the size of a large orange, or I suppose a grapefruit, which means that it's perfect for putting underneath the area of the sacrum. So let's begin. So you begin by lying down on your back and keep the legs bent initially. And then place the ball, if you have one, underneath the area of the sacrum. So the sacrum is at the base of the spine. It's that large sort of fused bone at the base of the spine between the two wings of the pelvis. The bottom part of the sacrum is the tip of your tailbone, and the top part is more towards the area of the lower back. But you don't want this ball to be in the lower back, that would be quite uncomfortable, but you really want to place it underneath the sacrum itself so that the sacrum can rest really fully on the ball. And what you'll begin to notice straight away is that the ball is and can be a little bit unstable, so do go carefully until you get used to having the weight resting on the ball. And then perhaps another clue to where the ball should be is that if you were to draw a line between from the two trochanters, the greater trochanters, a line between those two, the ball should be pretty much where that line is. And you can see I'm just resting on the ball, and it will take a moment or two, as I said, to get used to being comfortable on the ball. So first of all, you just let your weight sink down into the ball, and just doing that, there's something about the texture of these balls perhaps the material that they're made of that just makes it, for me, really comfortable to rest here. And one of the things I do at the end of a day, if I've been working on my table with people and my back's a bit achy, I just come and rest on one of these balls, and very quickly my muscles begin to let go, and my ligaments also just begin to settle. So once you're resting on the ball, imagine you're lying on a clock. This is the first exercise I teach on the balls usually. And 12 o'clock is where the head is, and 6 o'clock is where the feet are. And then just roll your sacrum a little bit to 6 o'clock, and then to 12 o'clock. So I'm just moving the sacrum a little bit to rolling over the ball towards 6 o'clock, and then towards 12 o'clock towards the head. So again, just going to 12 and 6 o'clock. And what I'm trying to do is, first of all, to take this slowly and carefully, and I'm just exploring this movement. And what I feel is when I go to 6 o'clock and my pubic bone or tailbone is pointing down towards the floor, my lower back begins to arch a bit more. As I go to 12 o'clock, my lower back comes a little bit closer to the floor, and my tummy comes more against my spine. So I'm just going from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and just seeing if I can keep my chest nice and open, that I'm not contracting unnecessarily in the pectoral muscles, and I'm not holding my breath or clenching my jaw. So I'm just going from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock a few times. And once you've done that, by all means rest if you need to, take the ball out. But then I think of going from left to right. So I'm trying to first of all bring my left hip around the ball and down towards the floor. And then I take the right hip down towards the floor. So I'm just going from side to side effectively, but if you'll notice, I'm not rolling the ball left and right. That would be a very different movement. Here I'm pretty much keeping the ball where it is, but I'm just seeing if I can allow the left side of my pelvis just to roll around the ball, and then the right side. So effectively, just separating or differentiating the movement of the pelvis from the upper part of the chest. And keeping my head fairly quiet. What you may notice is as the ball goes to as you take your pelvis to the left side of the ball, you'll find the head wanting to roll that side too. That's fine, just notice it. And equally, if you go to the right, you may find the head wanting to go to that side too. So if that is the case, just see if you can take this slowly and carefully enough, so that you're keeping the head and the chest and the arms all fairly soft and quiet. But again, just really thinking how you can initiate this from the area of the sacrum. And you'll notice that I'm trying to keep my knees just fairly quiet, so I'm not tilting the knees as I'm moving around the ball, just seeing if I can keep the legs nice and soft. So just finding movement, not just in the sacrum, but in those hip joints. Good. And then come back to centre, and then before you rest off the ball, just again go to 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock a few times. And then take the ball out and have a rest. And then please bring the legs back to standing. Put the ball back in the area of the sacrum. You may need, again, don't be afraid to adjust the ball to make sure you've got it in a comfortable place. But as I said, try to make sure you don't have it in the area of the lower back, that it's actually on underneath the bone of the sacrum. And again, just allow the weight to rest into the ball. Now, the next thing that I often ask my students to do is just to begin to explore taking one knee out to the side and then bring it back. So just exploring taking the knee out to the side, so the contact will shift underneath the foot and bring it back. And what often happens is that as I ask the, well, two possible things often, is that as the knee goes to the side, what happens is that they begin to roll off the ball. Like that. So that as the knee goes, they just roll off. So what I then begin to ask them to do is to really try and keep this area very stable, so that instead of rolling off the ball as the knee goes to the side, there's something they have to find, something I have to find more in the right hand side of my sacral area. I have to bring a little bit more weight into that area as I take the knee out to the side and bring it back. So just taking as I take the knee out to the side, I have to organise myself so that I keep weight in the right hand side of my sacrum. And you need to be fairly honest with yourself, or fussy with yourself, that you're really monitoring what happens here. You don't want the ball to roll over the ball even a little bit. You want to try and keep your weight, that's just allowing the weight to be in the right hand side of the sacrum, and then keep the weight there as you come back. So in other words, I'm stabilising the ball, but allowing my knee to drift out. I get this nice opening in the hip joint as I do that at the same time, and then come back. And again, trying to do this in a way that enables you to keep the chest soft, the face soft, the jaw soft, the breath unimpeded, and then come back. Once you've done it a few times, explored that with the left knee, you can try it with the right. So again, I'm trying to avoid my pelvis rolling off the ball as I take the knee out to the side. So I have to organise it so that more weight is coming into the left side of my sacrum as I take the knee to the side. Just taking the knee to the side, I have to keep weight in the left hand side as it goes and as the knee comes back. Another kind of way of avoiding this way of avoiding your organising your movement through the sacrum is what sometimes happens is, let's say I take the left knee out to the side, to stop themselves from rolling off the ball, what the person will do is kick out the other knee to the side to create a counterweight or a counterbalance. And that's fine as something to do. It's an intelligent way of organising your balance. But what it means is that you don't find this possibility of, as my left knee now goes out to the side, of counterbalancing through the sacrum or the pelvis as opposed to the opposite leg. Do you see there's a huge difference in terms of how you organise the movement? So I'll just show that. So again, I take the left knee out, and now I'm keeping this leg very soft, and I'm thinking, I have to bring more weight down into the right hand side of the ball or the sacrum to stop myself from falling or rolling. And then I come back, and then as I take the right knee out, I have to switch the organisation of my counterbalance and my weight to the left side of the sacrum without throwing this leg out as a counter. And then I come back. So in other words, what that is, if you think about it, is the ability to organise walking, crawl through the sacrum, through your centre, your core, Good. Now again, pause and take a rest. I'm sort of rushing through these to teach them really, to show you them on the video. I wouldn't expect you to do all of these at home at once. Maybe you just need to try one or two before you go on to some of the progressions. And particularly, don't force anything if you're in any kind of discomfort or injury. It can take time to learn how to use one of these balls, and I'd certainly encourage you to take that time. If you're ready to proceed, please bring the ball back into the area of the sacrum. You might find that getting a little bit easier to spot the place now. And then the next thing I ask my students to do to increase the challenge is to think of that they're going to lift one leg off the floor. So I ask them first to think of lifting the heel and then just putting it back down. Just lifting the heel and then putting it back down. And what you may find is that you lift your heel, again there's a sudden shift on the ball. The weight of the leg pulls you into an arch or a back bend. So if that's happening, I ask my clients to pause and think, what do I have to organise in terms of the sacrum and the pelvis to just float that heel up and then the leg over the chest. And then again, ask them to really think, how can they organise their weight into the ball to float the foot back down without disturbing the pelvis. You won't perhaps see so much on the video, but I can tell you it's requiring a lot of thought about how I do this in terms of making sure I keep weight, and pointing with my finger down into the sacrum as I float the foot back down. Again, I'm not to do this really contracting in the chest and the abdominal muscles to do that. I'm trying to really see, can I organise my balance and counterbalance for this movement in the area of the ball, the area of the sacrum, so that I control what happens to my sacrum and not the leg, if that makes sense. Once you've explored it with the one leg, of course, and try with the other. So as I'm lifting my right leg in and putting it back down, I'm trying not to disturb this area, but I'm having to keep weight down into the one side of the sacrum. Again, as I mentioned in the rolling video, rolling to relieve your back pain, don't turn this into a Pilates exercise where you keep the foot up and the lower leg up. That's a completely good exercise if you're doing it for Pilates, but again, there's no need to here, because I'm trying to move my leg in the hip joint and I'm trying to keep the quadriceps, the thigh muscles and the lower leg muscles nice and soft. Now, once you've explored doing this with one leg and then the other, life can get suddenly a lot more interesting, of course, because you can increase the challenge by bringing one leg up and then the other. So we're in this sort of baby rolling position, and then as I put one leg back down and then the other, again, I'm really focusing my control or my balance into the area of the ball or the sacrum. Now, to take this further, again, if you need to rest, please do so. Here I am in this rolling position. You may remember from the other video when I did it without the ball, like you can have your hands on your shins or on the outside of the thighs. I'm just going to have my hands down by the side at the moment. So I've got the legs in now over the chest, and here I'm just beginning to explore, can I tilt my legs a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left with control and a little bit to the right. And what I hope you'll notice from the video is that I'm not, as it were, moving my legs to do this. I'm achieving this movement because my intention is to move my sacrum around the ball. So I'm keeping the legs nice and soft. I'm not sort of contracting unnecessarily, but I'm finding this organisation, this movement from the sacrum. I'm moving the legs from one side to the other. Now you can begin to counterbalance through the head and eyes. So you're looking in the opposite direction with the head and eyes. And then from here, you could also have your hands by the side if you're worried a bit about balance, but when I have my hands here, I'm just keeping my hands super soft, so I'm not holding, I'm just giving a bit of support or guidance if necessary, exploring how far can I take the legs comfortably and come back without losing this possibility of reversing the movement. You can, if you are up for an extra challenge, you can actually have your arms up. Okay, just notice how I'm not holding my arms up by contracting in the hands or the forearms, keeping my chest nice and open as I explore this movement with the legs around the ball. You can involve the head going in the same direction. You can have the head go in the opposite direction. Good. Or just keep the head in the middle. Pause, careful as you put one foot down, don't suddenly go into a back bend and then the other, and take a rest. One of the reasons I think that's so fantastic an exercise to do is that when you come to, if you are sort of working on the rolling movements in Feldenkrais, and we covered a lesson in the last video, is instead of kind of throwing the legs around to organise this rolling, I can do this. Again, if I think the ball is still there, can you see how I'm initiating this movement, initiating this going from side to side from my sacrum. I'm not throwing the legs from side to side to do this. So once you've explored the ball with that kind of rolling, it's possible to use these balls with another kind of rolling, and I'll just show you. So I have the ball underneath the sacrum, and I bring my legs in, and then you can take hold, if you can reach comfortably, the feet. I've got my thumbs and fingers together, got my hands over the tops of the feet, and my elbows are inside my knees. The ball, I find, actually helps with this kind of rolling because it helps to tuck the tailbone a little bit towards the ceiling, making it easier to bring the legs in. And again here, you can just play with, can I roll a little bit from side to side? Because you're again thinking of initiating this from moving this area around the sacrum. And then if you want to get more adventurous, you can begin to explore extending a leg to the ceiling as you go to one side, and then the other leg towards the ceiling. So much fun to be had on these balls. So I hope that's given you some ideas of how you can use one of these balls to improve your core mobility, the movement of your butt and your movement generally. There are so many applications for this. It can improve your walking, it can improve your movement on the mat, the floor. You see, to do a movement of, say, coming from all fours to the floor requires the ability to be able to find the floor with the pelvis. And if your pelvis is an area that's stuck and you can't initiate movement from the pelvis, then all this kind of thing becomes much more difficult. I hope you liked the lesson. If you did, please hit the like button. If you haven't already subscribed, please hit the subscribe button.